One thing that a lot of people question when seeing mechanical keyboards, even though this isn't limited to mechs at all, is the size of them. In particular, having no numpad. So I just want to give my thoughts on this and how I believe a smaller keyboard can actually be greatly beneficial. Of course, everyone is different and have different use cases and scenarios, so obviously this won't apply to all. One of the first things that comes to mind is, but most laptops don't have a numpad. In fact, most laptops are running a 75% keyboard pretty much, so clearly it isn't much of a problem for many people. On a keyboard, there's two sets of numbers. We have the numpad and the number row. Therefore, there's always the option to just use one set. Obviously, if you're constantly using the numpad for number entry, which is especially more applicable in working environments, or if you need it for special functions, then the numpad is for you. So let's look at the common smaller form factors. 10 keyless keyboards will be the easiest to adapt to and the most recognizable and therefore the easiest to accept, and all it is a full-size keyboard with the numpad cut off. A 75% keyboard is essentially a 10 keyless as it's only missing 3 keys but is squashed together to make it more compact. 65% is probably one of the more popular form factors in the enthusiast community, as it's basically a 60% but with arrow keys and some nav keys, with a big emphasis on arrow keys, but compared to 75% and TKL, we lose the top function row. 60% is where I feel most people will start making some sacrifices, as you're going to rely on secondary functions and layers to access other keys, as it is just that main area of the keyboard. The big omission in my opinion are the dedicated arrow keys, and is the main reason why I personally don't really like using 60% keyboards. The size you pick will be dependent on what you need. If you don't need dedicated arrows, 60% is fine, then as you add to your needs, you add to the size. The difference here is that the keys that are omitted are now accessible via a key combo, as they will be on secondary layers. But this isn't the case for the numpad keys, as they're still there. Typically with smaller keyboards, we do have programmability options, which allows you to further fine-tune what keys you want and need in that restricted space. For example, you can have dedicated arrow keys on a 60%, or have media controls somewhere that people love. But why give up the numpad? The main thing is space. The difference between full size and TKL is already quite big, and then for 60, 65 and 75% they're all very similar in regards to desk real estate. And this is an automatic win if you have a small workspace, as you'll now have a bit more space for other stuff, such as for writing material and books and whatnot. The other physical advantage is that it's actually more ergonomically comfortable. I've always mentioned this in my videos, but this allows you to have more space for your mouse and allows you to bring it closer to the center, which will improve on your shoulder and arm positioning into something a bit more natural. And as many of us are at our computers for long periods, this can make a difference over time. And having more space for your mouse is awesome for gaming as well. And the thing is, once you do use a smaller keyboard and then go back to a full size, you really do notice that difference. And personally, when I have to review a full-size board, it just makes my workspace seem so much more cramped. Like it's not just a physical thing, but mentally it feels like it takes up way more space. And that impacts on how you feel and how you view your setup. And for some, it's just more visually appealing as it does give that minimalist type of aesthetic. Lastly, they are more portable, which I know won't be applicable for a lot of people, but yeah, it's way more easier to chuck a small board in your bag compared to a full-sized. So yeah, that's just what I think about it all. If the numpad is absolutely necessary, then you can't really get away from that. Of course it has its place and that's why it's there, but really think about if it's a necessity, because we always have all those keys in the main area of the keyboard, so why duplicate these keys? Because it really is a duplication for convenience, but not all of us need that convenience. So let me know what you think, and if you have any thoughts on maybe having made that change before, or what size you think best suits you.